August 3rd. You're looking at a Trane. Got a heat pump XR. I think it's a 16, I'm not sure. We'll look at that in a minute, but tech was out here a little while ago. Was having issues trying to figure it out. And sometimes I'm better if I'm just on site looking at something and trying to do it over the phone. We were out here to replace a AFC board in the air handler because the blower was not coming on from the original time we were out here. So we got that board, came out and put it on, but it was running some wonky pressure. It was like a 40 superheat and a 20 subcool, and took some refrigerant out and got it down to the 10 degree subcool, I think is what they were saying. Yeah, 8 degrees. But so right now it's just showing me a low refrigerant charge. We did take some out. I guess there were some issues with the superheat subcooling being out of whack, something, I don't know. But hope they didn't have the refrigerant probes crossed up. Maybe your high and low, all the other techs have the wired clamps, temperature clamps on their gauges. I use the wireless ones. You can get them crossed up sometime if you don't keep them untangled. Maybe that was the reason. But they were saying they were getting the 96 and the 229, and that was after they took refrigerant out of it. And they took the refrigerant out of it because they were having issues. It was showing some wacky stuff. I don't know. I wasn't here. So we're just going to say after they took the refrigerant out of it, thinking it was overcharged, they were still getting what I'm reading now pressure-wise, 95 over 229, but they were getting a 90 superheat and a 10 degree subcool. I'm getting a 38 superheat and a 0 subcool. So that's telling me undercharged. So I'm gonna go get some refrigerant and put it back in, and could very well have been an issue of temperature clamps being put on backwards, or maybe not having the proper refrigerant set right here on your gauges, and then it gives you wacky superheat and subcooling. Could have been one of those issues. But yeah, the other gauges they carry, I have the wireless probes on mine. They've all got the wired. Sometimes they get tangled and you think you've got the right suction line and liquid temperature and you hook them on backwards, or you don't pay attention. Maybe your scale's still sitting in R22 or 407 or something like that up there, and you didn't change it back possibly, but that's telling me a low charge. So the superheat and subcooling don't match what I was told on the phone. So it didn't make sense to me over the phone. So I told them to go ahead and go on to their next call. I was only 20 minutes up the road. I'll come by here and take a look at it. So let's go get some refrigerant and put it back in and see what happens. So got some good old 410A. Juicing this thing up. I mean, there's water draining, so I mean we're doing something in there. Probably starting to frost at this point because we're running a 30 degree coil, but we'll start adding some refrigerant to this thing and see what happens. And it could just be a simple error. You know, you're using these things and you got to pay attention, make sure from call to call. When I got to this one, I almost forgot it because the last unit I worked on, there'll be a video of that posted probably sometime in the next few days of old YCC package unit I was working on yesterday afternoon. It's a good video. Check it out when it comes up. Probably come up over the weekend maybe. And when I got here, I was still set on R22 right there. I didn't put my wireless probes. I keep the job links in the bag over here in this pocket. If you guys want to know, you've seen the damn video for the tour, but I keep my job link probes down in that side meter pocket, and my meter's over here. But sometimes I'll just grab these when I'm getting out of the truck and just grab them and go. But we'll see how this thing starts to stabilize out here a little bit. But yeah, these were set on R22 when I got here, so I had to remember to change them. So could be something as simple as that. So we'll see how this works out. Alright guys, now we're under under the house. So I added some refrigerant to that thing, and now I'm running a 128 basically in a 250. I'm running a 15 degree superheat and a 0.5 subcooling on this. So I want to check some things under here before I go any further, because this superheat is good. I mean, it's 79 degrees outside, cooler day, a little muggy as hell, but it's cooler. That subcooling should, I mean, it's supposed to be 8, it should be giving me at least 3 or 4 or 5 if it's still a little bit low, but it's still hovering just above 0. So I want to check the setup on this. We replaced the AFC board in there. Like I said, somebody had come out and the blower wasn't coming on. It would delay like a minute, and the outdoor unit would go out on low pressure because the blower was taking so long to start. So we put the board in and it fixed that problem, but now the refrigerant pressures are all out of whack, and this thing should be going into a setup menu. If you hold these buttons, there we go, monitor. So let's monitor real quick, see what we've got. Our EEV is 376 out of 500, so it's doing something. Our coil temperature is 46 degrees. So we're looking at a 4 degree superheat in there. We've got a 13 degree outside right now. So this is reading it at the coil. You are going to pick up some heat between the coil and going back to the outdoor unit on this suction line. So let's keep going, see what kind of information we got. CFM, the demand is 1,000. And we've got 993, so our airflow is good on this. It's a 2.5 ton unit. So 0.37 static is what it's showing me there. I never really trust that completely, but let's see what kind of supply temperature we're getting on this thing. See what our temperature split is on it. We'll come over here and see what kind of temperature split we're getting on this thing. I'll turn it on, it might help, right? So right now we'll let that run there for a minute or two. It's about 75 in the house. We're down to 50, going to 56. So I'm going to double check on the return plenum real quick and see what our actual return is. So we're going to be at about a 55 degree supply. Over here. See what kind of return we get on it. And then we'll check some sensors and some plugs. Don't know if it's got a... Now, it was a storm, a bad lightning strike or storm or something along those lines when that board went out. And this is the TAM9. If I'm not mistaken, that's going to have one large board in it. I don't know if it still has this off the top of my head, but we'll open it up here in a minute and check. I do have an EVC or EEV board on the truck. So we're at a creeping up to about an 17 degree split on this thing, and to be honest, it should be about 21 or 22. So in these conditions anyway. So let me go back up here. There's our 2.5 ton humidifiers. So let me go back up, and then we're going to scroll over to our configuration. So we are going constant CFM. We are a heat pump, 2.5 ton, 1 stage, 1 compressor, 400 CFM per ton. CPLR4, that's going to be our enhanced airflow profile, 50, 80, 100. And heat strips are set. So let's pop the door off of this thing and see what we've got going on in here. I'm going to temporarily disconnect Y for the outdoor unit. And let the air flow, while I'm getting this door off, let this air balance out and get my temperatures within the same temperature range so I can test the sensors on it and see if they're reading accurately. So I have everything out and open. This thing's showing no error codes anywhere on it. And it should be showing me some kind of fault for being running off charge as long as it was, but air noise, I'm sorry guys. I forgot these things. Yeah, they are positive air, so there's some air noise over there. So I'm letting this stuff balance out. You've got your, that's the coil sensors. Your orange one is reading your coil temperature. Just reading your suction line temperature, measuring superheat. Stepper motor is back there in the back for the EEV. I do have this board on the truck with me. It's actually for a call I'm supposed to run first thing in the morning, so if I end up using it here and it works, then I'm gonna have to call the parts house to see if they have another one I can pick up for the other call tomorrow morning, or otherwise we'll have to order this one because he's been scheduled for a week now to come back, and although his is running fine, and that's another video, so you'll see that one as well. Let's troubleshoot these sensors and see what we got going on. Alright guys, so I've disconnected the Y and the G. Drop that air noise down so you don't have to sit there and listen to it blowing against the microphone on this thing. So we're going to check these coil sensors and confirm that they're reading within range. I'm going to use DC voltage to test them. You can ohm them out, or you can use the DC voltage chart. I tend to start with the DC voltage chart. If both of them are reading pretty much the same after letting the air temperature inside this unit stabilize out, usually if one's bad, they're going to be reading completely different numbers. Odds of both of them being bad are usually pretty slim. We're going to start with our gas sensor, which is going to be black to black, and 1.6 DC, which is good. It's going to be somewhere in your low 70 range temperature, and you saw that I had a 73, 72 or 3 degree return temperature, so we know that's reading right. Now we're going to check this other one, and it's reading 1.7, so that one's going to be fine. That one's the one that's actually on the coil right there, and it is insulated, so this coil would have been the coldest point to begin with, and you can still feel it's cold. So a little bit higher DC voltage, 1.6 and then 1.7 on the other one. That's going to mean that coil temperature is a few degrees colder. Not concerned, that's reading correctly. Next thing I want to do is go over here and get my wire out from my stepper motor right here, and we're going to unplug that, and then we're going to ohm out the stepper motor. You want to make sure it is correct. So we're going to be ohming basically gray against all the other colors. And the older books say 46. If you go into the newer air handlers, the TAM Link, the TAM X, and the Trane Link and all that, the newer air handlers, they'll say the same thing, but then they'll say plus or minus 4. So set my meter to ohms, and let's ohm this thing out. So we got 45.6, 45.8, got a 46, and 46. So the stepper motor is also just fine. So this is the board that controls the refrigerant flow in this thing, based on having a call for cooling over here on this board, your Y, your G, and your O being energized. The outdoor unit is not got an EEV in it, it's a TXV, so we're not concerned with that out there. As far as the EEV controls being a problem outside, because there's no board out there for that, it's not in that unit. The other video is that going to be a 2-stage unit. You'll see that one me doing kind of something similar to that I'm doing here. But that one also has an EEV board and an EEV in the outdoor unit, and these same sensors and a transducer for your suction pressure. This board controls your refrigerant flow in this thing, and all it does is take the superheat from these two sensors and then throttle this motor right here to control the refrigerant flow in this thing. And this is unused, it's not plugged to anything in there in this particular scenario anyway. And this little wire here, this is just a communications jumper for the airflow board over here on the side. So and if I unplug that, if there's a communications problem, you should see red lights at some point in some kind of fault code. Yep, there's our E4 right there. Yeah, I don't know how well those lights look like they're flashing, but there's our fault code there. So I'm going to replace this board. I just happened to, like I said, I've got one right here. It was meant for another job for tomorrow morning. It was on my truck, but if I can, I just want to put it in there while I've got it, see if it works on this thing. Like I said, they had a problem with the power surge, or I can't remember what it was, electrical storm, real bad. We had some real bad storms there for a while, and possibly these two boards being jumped together. When it took that one out, it took this one out, and because that one just wouldn't turn the blower on for like a minute, and the outdoor unit was tripping low pressure because we had no airflow for like a minute when it first started up. We put that in this morning and it fixed the problem. Now we're having refrigerant flow issues, so it could have been a combination of both. So we'll find out. Let me stick this board in here and see what happens. Alright, so I've got the old board out. We're going to put the new one in real quick. Figure you need to see video of both. just opposite, basically. Opposite motion, reverse motion. Anyway, so we'll get the new board on there, and then we'll get it running. And if I'm still having an issue, then I'm probably going to come back in here, start feeling around on this coil. I mean, the whole thing seemed to be sweating a while ago, so I don't think I've got an issue with any restricted circuits in this coil. Our stepper motor is snapped into the proper position back there, so it's in correctly. And here's these little boards and these little itty bitty screws that you just don't, well, you hope you don't drop. But we'll get one in there. There we go. Get the other ones in. We'll get it back on. Hopefully this will take care of it. Just with all this new mess. Seems like most of the problems are some kind of an electrical issue or a sensor or a control board or something. I mean, I doubt there's any kind of a restriction in that coil. I mean, where the hell would it come from suddenly? But, yeah, I remember this house. I was here about 6 years ago. I guess she finally got rid of that old, oh gosh, it was a Tip Star unit she had an X13 motor, and it was going to be like $1,300 to replace it. It wasn't under warranty. And I took a universal motor off the truck and some sequencers and a contactor. I might have used contactors for the heat strips. I don't know. But I basically wired that damn thing up just like a Trane air handler. Old BWH or T, whatever the old Trane air handler was. Let me turn the power off real quick. Well, this stuff can kind of reset when I turn it back on, but basically it said Tip Star on the outside. When you opened it up, you were looking at a Trane air handler. Because I've done it a couple of times where I've wired some stuff up like Goodman's and used sequencers, blow a relay in it and get that thing on. Those variable or X13 motors being expensive and all that. And I think I remember doing hers with a contactor for her heat strips, just like the older Trane air handlers did. Worked like a champ for like 4 years, and I think she finally sprung a leak in the evaporator coil in it. And then we came out here and put this in last year, and what do you know? But like I said, she had problems with electrical. Let me get all the thermostat wiring put back on, get this thing back up and running, and we'll go see what those pressures are doing. So as I got the new board in, when I got everything back on, now suddenly it was showing me a stepper motor open winding fault. You know, we ohmed out the stepper motor, but I didn't think much about it when I was taking this thing out. That little snail shell was stuck to the back of this plug when I unplugged it. And look at all that shit on there. So I'm wondering now, are we getting a bad connection in this damn thing? And I gotta figure out how to clean all this shit off. All up in the plug, especially down in here. He was sitting right up on the back of that old board. So I've got some WD-40, but I've got some hand sanitizer, some peroxide, and some evaporator cleaner. A little bit left in this. So I'm going to try to clean this damn plug up and see if that fixes the problem. So I have cleaned this thing up the best I could. I sprayed, believe it or not, I shot some evaporator coil cleaner up in that thing. And we're going to turn it back on. I put rubbing alcohol on it, peroxide on it, some hand sanitizer. Blew it back out. Don't have anything small enough to fit in these little holes. I don't have any like 22 gauge thermostat wire or anything on the truck. to fit up in there, and I don't have any sewing needles, so I scrubbed it with a wire brush. I blew it out, but it was giving me this 5.1 fault, which I wasn't getting that before. You saw me test the stepper motor. It ohmed out good. We didn't have any fault codes flashing when I first started. I put the new board in, plugged everything up, and boom. And I just remembered, like I said, when I took that old board off, that damn snail was stuck to the back of this plug, and the back, top of it up here in the back. And evidently whatever shit they bleed, or that juice gets down in there, and that could have been part of the problem the whole time. I don't know, but I know it ohmed out fine, and then now it's telling me I got an open winding in it, and I just checked it. So I have cleaned it. This is the fault that I was getting. So that little red light there, and then there we go. And then if you know anything about these damn air handlers, when you turn the breaker back on and power it up, you'll hear that motor it closes, it opens, it tests itself, and it wasn't doing that. And then we actually had the stepper motor at like a position when we were testing it the first time. So a damn snail. We're getting ready to find out. Let's plug it back up and see what happens. We're going to turn the power off. We're going to plug this thing back in, and hopefully it just needed a snail shit cleaning. And there we go. Wasn't getting that at all. So let's see. Idle. It's cranking back into the default position. Our fault code has gone away. Our fault code number has gone away. And ain't that something, guys? If anybody ever seen snail shit cause a problem, post a video if you have. I'd like to see it. I'll be damned. Let me get this thing back together. We still got to find out if that board is going to fix our metering problem. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. Alright guys, I told you had to see it to believe it. Snail shit. Now we are running perfectly fine. So that snail crap got down in that plug where it plugged to that EEV board, and it was showing me an open winding fault. But the stepper motor ohmed out at basically 46 ohms directly to the motor, so it was between the harness where it plugs to the stepper motor through the cabinet where we had an open circuit. Snail shit. Alright guys, appreciate you watching. That was a good one, and if you've seen that before, please leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Appreciate everybody, especially the 1,700 roughly that have subscribed in the last 4 days. Thanks guys, appreciate it, and I'll see what I can do on the next one. Thanks for watching.